Can a single phone call change a life forever? An insensitive millionaire calls a job applicant who missed her interview. And what a little girl says leaves him in tears. Before anything else, if you're watching this from a place of struggle, know that you're not alone. Drop a heart. Maxwell Pierce slammed his fist on the polished mahogany desk, sending a wave of tension through his corner office on the 47th floor. The Manhattan skyline stretched out behind him, a testament to the empire he'd built from nothing. Unacceptable, he growled, glaring at the resume in front of him. Completely unprofessional. Margaret, his executive assistant of 15 years, stood stoically by the door. She'd seen these outbursts before. The woman didn't even call to cancel Margaret. This was a senior marketing position. A courtesy call would have been the bare minimum. Perhaps something came up, Margaret suggested carefully. Ms. Mitchell's references were exemplary, Maxwell scoffed. Something more important than a job interview at Pierce Enterprises. I doubt it. He ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. At 45, Maxwell had built $1 billion technology company, but the cost had been high. No family, few friends, and a reputation as a brilliant but merciless businessman. Give me her number, he demanded suddenly. I want to tell her personally that this kind of unprofessionalism doesn't fly in New York. Margaret hesitated. Max, is that really necessary? The number, Margaret. His tone left no room for argument. With a resigned sigh, Margaret handed over the contact information for Sarah Mitchell. Maxwell punched the numbers into his phone, rehearsing the cutting remarks he would deliver. The phone rang 3 times before a small voice answered. Hello, Maxwell paused, thrown off by the distinctly childlike voice. I'm trying to reach Sarah Mitchell, he said, his professional tone automatically softening. Mommy can't come to the phone, the little voice replied. She's crying in the bathroom. Something in Maxwell's chest tightened. Will this revelation change his life? Is she okay? She's sad because she missed the important meeting today, the child explained with disarming honesty. But we didn't have any food, and she had to go to the food bank before it closed. She said the job would have fixed everything. Maxwell felt the air leave his lungs. His prepared speech evaporated. What's your name? He asked quietly. Emily. I'm 6. There was a pause. Are you the important man Mommy was supposed to meet? She has your picture from the computer. Yes, I'm Maxwell Pierce. The girl gasped. You're the man in Mommy's special box. She has pictures of you in papers with your name. Maxwell frowned, confused. What kind of papers? Grown-up papers and a picture of you at the beach. Mommy says you're my daddy, but you're too busy for us. The world seemed to tilt around Maxwell. What did you say? He whispered, his knuckles white around the phone. Are you really my daddy? Emily asked, her voice suddenly hopeful. Will you come see us now? Mommy says you're the smartest, richest man in New York. She says, I have your eyes. Maxwell's hand shook as he reached for his desk chair, missing it entirely and sinking to his knees on the plush carpet. That's not possible, he said more to himself than to the child. I can't have children. The bathroom door creaked open in the background. Emily, who are you talking to? A woman's panicked voice came through the line. It's my daddy. Mommy, he called us. The phone clattered and Maxwell heard a gasp followed by Sarah's voice tight with emotion. Mr. Pierce, I can explain everything. But Maxwell couldn't respond. Tears streamed down his face as 30 years of certainty crumbled around him. The world's most ruthless CEO, brought to his knees by 6 simple words, Mommy says you're my daddy. Maxwell's executive suite fell silent after the call ended. He sat motionless behind his desk, staring at the phone as if it might explain what had just happened. Margaret had quietly slipped away, sensing he needed space. Impossible, he whispered. The memory surged back, a doctor's office 15 years ago. The grim-faced specialist confirming his sterility after a childhood illness, the medical certainty that had shaped his life choices. His computer chimed with an incoming email from Margaret Sarah Mitchell's complete file. Maxwell clicked through the documents with trembling fingers. Resume, references, background check, and there it was, a note about a 6-year-old daughter. He searched Sarah Mitchell and scanned through social media accounts until he found her. His breath caught. The woman looked vaguely familiar, a ghost from his past, and beside her in several photos was Emily, a little girl with his steel blue eyes and characteristic dimple. Maxwell's mind raced back 7 years to the tech conference in San Diego. 3 days of networking, one night of unexpected connection with a brilliant young software developer, Sarah. They'd spent one passionate weekend together before he returned to New York. She tried contacting him afterward, but his assistant had blocked her calls as per standard protocol with Maxwell's brief entanglements. "Call my car," he barked into the intercom. Within minutes, Maxwell was speeding through Manhattan traffic toward the Bronx address in Sarah's file. The neighborhood was a stark contrast to his penthouse world. Children played on cracked sidewalks while tired-looking adults trudged home from long workdays. Maxwell felt conspicuously out of place as his luxury car crawled down the street. He found the apartment building, a worn brick structure with peeling paint. Taking a deep breath, he approached the buzzer for Unit 4B. His finger hovered over the button. What would he say? What could he say? If Emily truly was his daughter. The possibility sent equal waves of terror and wonder through him. The building door suddenly swung open as a tenant exited. Maxwell caught it reflexively and stepped inside. The lobby smelled of cabbage and disinfectant. He climbed 4 flights of stairs, his designer shoes echoing in the stairwell. Outside 4B, he paused again, straightening his tie and running a hand through his hair. Then he knocked. Footsteps approached. Light and quick. The door opened a crack secured by a chain, revealing a slice of a woman's face. Her eyes widened. "Mr. Pierce." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "We need to talk," Maxwell said, his customary authority faltering. The door closed, the chain rattled, and then it opened fully. Sarah Mitchell stood before him, older than in his hazy memory, her face lined with exhaustion, but still striking. Behind her peered a small face with familiar blue eyes. "Are you really my daddy?" Emily asked. Newell Pierce, the man who controlled boardrooms with a glance, found himself speechless. The apartment was small, but meticulously organized. Textbooks stacked on a side table suggested Sarah was studying. A makeshift office occupied one corner. A laptop surrounded by programming manuals. The kitchen counters were bare except for a single box of cereal. "Emily, sweetheart," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tension radiating from her. "Can you please go play in your room for a few minutes while I talk to Mr. Pierce?" "But Mommy, please." "Them." Just for a little while, the girl's eyes darted between them before she reluctantly retreated, closing her bedroom door with a pointed look at Maxwell. "You should sit," Sarah gestured to a worn sofa. "This isn't a conversation to have standing." Maxwell remained upright. "Is she mine?" The question hung between them, stark and demanding. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. "Yes, that's impossible. I can't have children." "Medical fact?" She laughed bitterly. "Apparently, medical facts can be wrong." "You never told me?" "I tried for months. Your assistant blocked my calls. My emails went unanswered. Eventually, I got the message." Maxwell paced the small living room. "I need a DNA test." "Fine." Sarah crossed her arms. "I've got nothing to hide. I never asked you for anything, Maxwell. We've managed on our own." "Clearly," he said, glancing around the humble apartment. The remark came out more condescending than intended. Sarah's expression hardened. "We don't need your money or your judgment. Emily asked about you, so I told her the truth, that her father was successful, but not in our lives. I never said a bad word about you." A drawing on the refrigerator caught Maxwell's eye. A child's rendering of a family. A small figure labeled me. A taller one labeled Mom. And a third figure with a crown and dollar signs labeled Dad in New York. Something cracked inside Maxwell's chest. "I'll arrange for the test tomorrow," he said, his voice oddly thick. "But I want to meet her properly. Now, if that's okay." Surprise flickered across Sarah's face, softening her anger. "You do?" Before Maxwell could answer, Emily's door cracked open. "Are you done talking about me yet?" Sarah smiled faintly. "Come meet Mr. Pierce properly, Emily." The little girl approached cautiously, studying him with an intensity that mirrored his own boardroom scrutiny. She extended her small hand formally. "I'm Emily Mitchell. I'm in first grade and I'm good at math." Maxwell knelt slowly, meeting her at eye level, and took her tiny hand in his. "I'm Maxwell Pierce. I'm good at math, too." Her face lit up. "Can you do fractions?" "We're learning those." The penthouse felt emptier than usual as Maxwell paced across Italian marble floors. 3 days had passed since the DNA test, 3 days of sleepless nights and distracted meetings. Today, the results would arrive. His phone rang. The private line reserved for his lawyer. "It's confirmed, Max," said Arthur Weinstein, his attorney of 20 years. 9,999,999,998% probability of paternity. She's your daughter. Maxwell sank onto the nearest chair. "How is this possible, Arthur?" The doctors said, medical miracles happen or medical errors. Either way, you have a 6-year-old daughter. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What indeed? Maxwell had built his empire on decisive action, but this situation defied his usual approach. "I need to see them again," he said finally. An hour later, Maxwell sat across from Sarah at a quiet cafe near her apartment. They'd agreed to meet while Emily was in school. The test confirmed it, Maxwell said without preamble. Sarah nodded. "I never doubted it. I want to be part of her life." The words surprised him as much as they did Sarah. "Just like that. You'll sweep in after 6 years and play daddy." Her voice held both skepticism and hope. "I missed 6 years I can never get back," Maxwell said quietly. "I don't want to miss any more." Sarah studied him carefully. "This isn't a business acquisition, Maxwell. You can't just decide you want her and take over. Emily has a life, routines, feelings." "I understand that. Do you?" Because the Maxwell Pierce, I remember, wasn't exactly known for his emotional intelligence. The comment stung because it was true. People can change. Can they? Sarah leaned forward. "Why do you want this?" "Really?" "Because she's suddenly yours. Another possession, or because you actually care about her well-being?" Maxwell considered the question honestly. The revelation had shaken him profoundly. Something had awakened within him. Something he'd never known existed. "When I heard her voice on the phone," he said slowly, "something happened to me. I can't explain it. Then when I saw her, those eyes, my mother's eyes," he swallowed hard. "I've achieved everything I ever wanted, Sarah. Everything except the things I convinced myself I couldn't have. A family." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "Emily asks about you as for years. What do you tell her?" "That her father is a very important man who doesn't know about her." "I never wanted her to think you rejected her." Maxwell felt a surge of gratitude toward this woman who'd raised his child alone without bitterness. "What do you need?" he asked. "Both of you?" Sarah laughed softly. "That's such a CEO question." "We're not a problem to solve, Maxwell." "I didn't mean it that way," he said, frustration edging his voice. "I want to help. Emily needs stability, consistency, a father who shows up not just financially, but emotionally. Can you provide that?" Truly, the playground bustled with activity as Maxwell watched Emily swing higher and higher, her laughter carrying across the park. It was their third weekend together, a tentative routine they'd established with Sarah's cautious blessing. "Higher, Max, push me higher," Emily called. He still felt strange hearing her call him Max instead of Daddy, but Sarah had suggested they take things slowly. Emily knew he was her father, but building that relationship would take time. "Not too high, monkey," he cautioned, giving another gentle push. The nickname had slipped out naturally during their first outing, and Emily had beamed with delight. From a bench nearby, Sarah observed them, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. Their own relationship remained cordial but guarded. Too much history, too many unspoken words between them. "Max," Emily said as the swing slowed. "Why don't you live with us?" Maxwell froze. He'd been dreading this question. "Well, grown-ups sometimes have complicated living arrangements. Tommy's dad lives somewhere else, too. But now he's back home. His mom says they're trying again." Maxwell carefully helped her off the swing. "Every family is different, Emily, but I'll always be your dad, no matter where I live." "Promise?" "I promise." The solemnity in her eyes nearly undid him. Later, as Emily played with another child on the jungle gym, Maxwell joined Sarah on the bench. "She's asking questions," he said quietly. Sarah nodded. "I expected she would. I'm not sure I'm answering them right. There are no perfect answers, just honest ones." She hesitated. "You're doing better than I expected." Coming from Sarah. This qualified as high praise. Maxwell felt an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. "I've been thinking," he ventured. "Your apartment," Sarah stiffened immediately. "We don't need your charity." "It's not charity to want your child to live somewhere safe. The building's infrastructure is concerning, Sarah. Last weekend, the elevator wasn't working, and the week before there was that water leak. We manage. You shouldn't have to just manage. Not when I can help." He softened his tone. "I'm not suggesting anything dramatic. Maybe a better apartment in the same neighborhood. Emily wouldn't have to change schools." Sarah was quiet for a long moment watching Emily play. "I've applied to a coding boot camp. She finally said if I get in, it could change everything for us. Better job, better future." "That's fantastic. When do you find out?" "Next week, but the program is full-time for 3 months. I'd have to quit my current job and with childcare costs." She shook her head. Maxwell saw the opening. "Let me help with that. Not forever, just while you're in the program. Consider it an investment in Emily's future." Sarah's pride warred visibly with practicality. "I'll think about it." A shriek of laughter drew their attention. Emily was being chased by a boy around the jungle gym. Her face alight with joy. "She looks like my mother when she smiles," Maxwell said softly. "I have photos I could show you sometime." Sarah turned to him, really looking at him perhaps for the first time. "I'd like to see those." Emily would too. Something shifted between them in that moment. Not forgiveness exactly, but the first fragile bridge spanning years of absence. "Max, watch me," Emily called, preparing to go down the slide. Both adults turned to watch their daughter. This miracle neither had expected as she launched herself down the plastic slide with complete abandonment, trusting they would both be there when she landed. The hospital corridor seemed to stretch endlessly before Maxwell as he ran, his heart pounding against his ribs. The call had come during a board meeting. Sarah's voice tight with panic. Emily's collapsed. "We're at Mount Sinai Children's." He burst through the emergency department doors, his usual composure shattered. "Emily Mitchell," he gasped to the receptionist. "I'm her father." The words still felt new on his tongue, but in this moment they were the most important identity he possessed. A nurse directed him to a curtained area where he found Sarah standing pale-faced beside a bed where Emily lay connected to monitors, her small form unnervingly still. "What happened?" he demanded, more harshly than intended. Sarah's composure cracked. "She fainted at school. They couldn't wake her up right away." Her voice broke. "The doctors are running tests." Maxwell moved to Emily's side, taking her limp hand in his. 2 months into his new role as father, and already he couldn't imagine life without her weekly visits, her morning phone calls, her drawings that now adorned his refrigerator. "Mr. Pierce, Miss Mitchell." A doctor appeared, clutching a tablet. "I'm Dr. Winters. We have some preliminary results." The next few minutes blurred as medical terminology washed over them. Words like anomaly and further testing stood out starkly against phrases that made Maxwell's blood run cold: kidney function and genetic condition. "Genetic?" Maxwell interrupted. "You mean she inherited this?" Dr. Winters nodded. "This particular condition can be hereditary. We'll need family medical histories from both parents." "That's impossible," Maxwell said automatically. "I was told I couldn't have children due to a childhood illness," the doctor frowned. "What illness specifically?" "Mumps complicated bias." "I was 14. Dr. Winters typed something into his tablet. "That typically reduces fertility but rarely causes complete sterility. More importantly, it wouldn't cause this condition." He looked up. "However, this might explain why you were told you couldn't have children." A nurse appeared with more test results, and the doctor stepped away to review them. Sarah turned to Maxwell, her eyes wide. "They said it might be serious." For the first time in his adult life, Maxwell felt completely powerless. His wealth, his influence, his carefully constructed empire. None of it could protect the small girl lying in the hospital bed. "She'll be okay," he said. The words hollow even to his own ears. "I'll make sure of it. Whatever specialists we need, whatever treatments, this isn't something you can fix by throwing money at it, Maxwell." Sarah's voice cracked. "This is our daughter. Our daughter." The phrase hung between them, both an accusation and a connection. Dr. Winters returned, his expression grave. "We need to transfer Emily to our specialized pediatric unit. Her condition is more serious than we initially thought." "What exactly is wrong with her?" Maxwell demanded. "She has a rare condition called Alport syndrome. It's affecting her kidneys. We need to start treatment immediately and monitor her closely." "Will she?" Sarah couldn't finish the question. "With proper care, many patients lead full lives, but she'll need specialized treatment possibly for life." "And eventually what?" Maxwell pressed. "Eventually, she may need a kidney transplant." The word transplant echoed in Maxwell's mind as he looked down at Emily's pale face, his daughter, his responsibility, the child he never knew he wanted until she existed. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said, meeting Sarah's tearful gaze across the bed. "Whatever she needs, we'll face this together." For once, Sarah didn't argue. Maxwell's Aston Martin screeched into the hospital parking lot. He'd cut short a meeting with Japanese investors, a deal worth billions, without explanation. Nothing mattered except the text from Sarah. "Emily's tests are back. Doctor wants to talk to both of us." The past month had blurred into hospital visits, specialist consultations, and late-night research sessions. Maxwell had deployed his corporate efficiency to Emily's medical crisis, creating spreadsheets of treatment options and flying in specialists from across the country. He found Sarah in the waiting room, her eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. Neither spoke as they were led to Dr. Winters' office. "Emily's kidney function is declining faster than we anticipated," the doctor explained gently. "The medications aren't working as effectively as we'd hoped." "What are our options?" Maxwell demanded, falling into negotiation mode. "Long-term, she'll need a transplant, ideally from a family member." "Test me," Maxwell said immediately. Dr. Winters hesitated. "Mr. Pierce, I understand your eagerness, but there are many factors that determine compatibility, and given your own medical history." "Just test me," Maxwell insisted. "And Sarah, too," the doctor nodded. "We'll arrange that. In the meantime, we'll manage her symptoms with medications and dietary restrictions." Later, they stood by Emily's bed as a nurse explained the new medication regimen. Emily listened solemnly. Too young to fully understand, but old enough to be frightened. "Will I have to take these forever?" she asked. We hope not, sweetheart, Sarah said, squeezing her hand. Can I still come to your house this weekend? Emily asked, turning to Maxwell. He'd been planning to show her the nursery he'd prepared in his penthouse, a room filled with books and toys, walls painted her favorite shade of purple, their first overnight visit. Of course you can, he assured her, though he glanced at Sarah for confirmation. Outside Emily's room, they spoke in hushed tones. I'd been researching specialists, Maxwell said. There's a team in Boston doing groundbreaking work with pediatric kidney disease. I'd like to get their opinion. Sarah nodded wearily. Whatever helps. Maxwell hesitated. You know, it would be easier if you both stayed at my place. You wouldn't have to commute to the hospital. And I have plenty of room, Maxwell. Sarah cut him off. I appreciate everything you're doing. I do, but we can't just move into your life like that. Why not? Emily needs stability. You said so yourself. Yes, but not. She stopped, composing herself. This isn't about us. It's about what's best for her. And having her parents together isn't what's best. The question hung between them, loaded with implications. Sarah looked away. We're not a couple, Maxwell. We're barely even friends. We could be, he said quietly. Before she could respond, Emily's nurse approached with paperwork, ending the conversation. That night, alone in his penthouse, Maxwell wandered into the purple bedroom he'd created for his daughter. A sequence of framed pictures lined one wall. Photos of Emily from birth to present provided by Sarah. 6 years of a life he'd missed. He picked up a small stuffed rabbit waiting on the perfectly made bed. Emily's favorite animal. Tomorrow he'd bring it to the hospital. His phone rang, his executive assistant reminding him of the rescheduled investor meeting. Cancel it, Maxwell said. Cancel everything for the next week, sir. Margaret's voice registered rare shock. The board won't be pleased. The board doesn't matter. Nothing matters except Emily. He ended the call and sat on the edge of the small bed, the stuffed rabbit clutched in his hand. Realizing with startling clarity that his definition of success had fundamentally changed, Sarah stared at the business proposal on her laptop. The words blurring together after hours of work. The coding boot camp she dreamed of attending now seemed impossibly distant. With Emily's condition, she couldn't commit to full-time study. A knock at the apartment door startled her. Maxwell stood outside holding groceries. You didn't answer your phone, he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. It died. I forgot to charge it. Sarah watched as he moved efficiently around her kitchen, unpacking fresh fruits, vegetables, and the specialized low-sodium foods Emily's new diet required. You need to be reachable, Maxwell said, arranging items in her refrigerator. I've ordered you a new phone with an extended battery. It'll be delivered tomorrow. Sarah bristled. I don't need you managing my life, Maxwell. He paused, a container of organic blueberries in hand. In the 2 months since Emily's diagnosis, they'd fallen into an uneasy co-parenting arrangement. Maxwell handled medical costs and used his connections to secure the best care, while Sarah coordinated daily treatments and appointments. You're right, he conceded. I'm sorry. Old habits. The simple apology disarmed her. The Maxwell she'd known 7 years ago would never have apologized for anything. How was Emily today? He asked, changing subjects. Tired after dialysis, but she perked up when I mentioned you were coming for dinner. Maxwell smiled. I brought her favorite ice cream, the special kidney-friendly kind. Sarah watched him move around her kitchen with surprising competence. When did you learn to cook? YouTube, he admitted. After Emily mentioned she liked chicken parmesan, I had my chef teach me the basics. The image of billionaire Maxwell Pierce taking cooking lessons for a 6-year-old struck Sarah as absurdly touching. As Maxwell prepared dinner, Sarah returned to her laptop. What are you working on so intently? He asked, glancing over her shoulder. A freelance web development project trying to supplement my income since I had to cut back hours at work for Emily's appointments. Maxwell studied the screen. This is good work. Sarah blinked, surprised by the professional assessment. Thanks. It's just a small business site, but no, I mean it. The code is elegant. He pointed to a section. Though this function could be more efficient. You code? Sarah asked, incredulous. Maxwell smiled. Yes. I built Pierce Enterprises on my own programming before I could afford to hire engineers. I still review our core architecture. Sarah had forgotten this aspect of him. The brilliant mind behind the businessman. It was what had attracted her 7 years ago at the tech conference before she discovered the cold ambition that defined the rest of him. The front door opened as Emily returned from her neighbor friend's apartment. Her face lit up when she saw Maxwell. Max, you came. She ran to him and he scooped her up carefully, mindful of her recently implanted dialysis port. Of course I came. I promised, didn't I? Emily nodded solemnly. Mom says promises are very important. Your mom is right. Maxwell met Sarah's eyes over Emily's head. Something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of the promises made and broken in their shared past. Later, after Emily had gone to bed, they sat together at the small kitchen table. I have a proposition, Maxwell said quietly. Sarah tensed. Maxwell, not that kind, he clarified quickly. A professional one. Pierce Enterprises needs contract developers for a new project. Remote work, flexible hours. Sarah stared at him. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity. Your coding skills are solid, and you need work that accommodates Emily's schedule. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's mutually beneficial. You get paid work on your terms, and I get a developer who won't waste time on office politics. Sarah considered the offer, weighing pride against practicality. I'd report to you, Maxwell shook his head. To our project lead. You'd be treated like any other contractor. I'll think about it, she said finally. He nodded, accepting her response. As he prepared to leave, he paused at the door. Sarah, about what you said at the hospital, that we're not even friends. Could we try to be? The vulnerability in his question caught her off guard. This wasn't the Maxwell Pierce who dismissed her call 7 years ago. For Emily's sake, she agreed cautiously. We can try. What do you mean not compatible? Maxwell's voice echoed through the consultation room. Dr. Winters sighed. Neither you nor Ms. Mitchell is a suitable kidney donor match for Emily. Your blood types are compatible, but the tissue typing shows high risk of rejection. 3 months had passed since Emily's diagnosis. Her condition had stabilized with treatment, but the need for a transplant remained inevitable. There has to be a mistake, Maxwell insisted. We ran the tests twice, the doctor confirmed. I'm sorry. Sarah sat quietly, absorbing the news while Maxwell paced like a caged tiger. So, what now? She finally asked. Emily goes on the national transplant list, Dr. Winters explained. Given her age and condition, she'll have priority, but it could still be months or longer. Months? Maxwell's voice rose. She needs help now. Her dialysis is managing the symptoms, the doctor reminded him. Many patients wait years for compatible adenosis. Unacceptable, Maxwell snapped, falling back on his familiar corporate coldness. There must be alternatives. Extended family members could be tested, Dr. Winters suggested. Siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents? My parents are deceased, Sarah said softly. I have no siblings. My father died years ago, Maxwell added. My mother is in her 70s with health issues of her own. They left the hospital in silence, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. In the parking lot, Maxwell turned to Sarah. Move in with me, he said abruptly. What? You and Emily? My penthouse has 5 bedrooms. You'd have your own space, privacy. Emily would have a stable environment close to the hospital. Sarah shook her head. Maxwell, we've discussed this. This isn't about us, he insisted. It's about providing the best care for Emily. The commute is wearing you down. You're exhausted. She couldn't deny that. The hours spent on subways between work, home, and hospital had taken their toll. The freelance work for Pierce Enterprises had helped financially, but time remained her scarcest resource. Just think about it, Maxwell pressed. For Emily's sake. I need to get back to her, Sarah said, avoiding a direct answer. That evening, after Emily had fallen asleep in her hospital bed, Sarah stepped into the hallway to call Maxwell. I've been researching alternative donor programs, he said without greeting. There's a paired exchange program where incompatible donor-recipient pairs are matched with others in the same situation. Max, slow down. The doctor said Emily's stable for now. For now isn't good enough. He snapped. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow. You're what? I'm going public with Emily's condition, appealing for donors. With Pierce Enterprises' platform, we can reach millions. Without discussing it with me first, Sarah's voice shook with anger. She's our daughter, Maxwell, not a publicity stunt. This isn't about publicity. It's about using every resource I have, including turning our private struggle into public spectacle. Emily deserves dignity, not to be the subject of some billionaire's heartstring-tugging campaign. The silence that followed vibrated with tension. You still don't trust me, Maxwell finally said, his voice flat. This isn't about trust. It's about respecting boundaries. Another weighted pause. Fine, no press conference. After they hung up, Sarah leaned against the cold hospital wall. Tears streaming down her face. The emotional toll of the past months crashed over her. The fear for Emily, the complicated feelings resurfacing for Maxwell, the exhaustion of holding everything together. Inside the room, Emily stirred. Mom, are you crying? Sarah quickly wiped her eyes and returned to her daughter's side. Just tired, baby. Emily patted the bed beside her. You can share my bed. It helps when I'm scared. Sarah slipped beside her daughter, holding her close, wondering how such a small child could possess such immense wisdom. Is Max coming tomorrow? Emily asked sleepily. Yes, sweetheart. Good. He promised to read me the next Harry Potter chapter. Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead, recognizing that despite their differences, Maxwell had kept every promise he'd made to Emily. Perhaps that counted for something. After all, the holiday decorations in the children's ward couldn't mask the sterile hospital environment, but Emily's room had become a riot of color. Artwork covered the walls, stuffed animals crowded her bed, and a small Christmas tree twinkled in the corner. Maxwell's addition. 4 months into Emily's treatment. They'd settled into a rhythm. Maxwell visited daily, often working remotely from Emily's room. Sarah had reluctantly accepted his offer to move into a fully furnished apartment near the hospital, not his penthouse, but a comfortable space that shortened her commute significantly. Today, Maxwell arrived with a thick folder tucked under his arm, his expression uncharacteristically nervous. Sarah, can we talk privately? They stepped into the small waiting area while a nurse checked Emily's vitals. What is it? Sarah asked, noticing the dark circles under Maxwell's eyes. He handed her the folder. I hired a private investigator. You what? Sarah's voice rose sharply. To investigate me? No, to investigate my medical history. Maxwell ran a hand through his hair, now more gray than black. Something never added up about my supposed sterility, so I dug deeper. Sarah opened the folder cautiously. Inside were medical records, letters, and legal documents. My father paid the doctor to lie to me, Maxwell said, his voice hollow. When I was 14 and developed complications from MS, he bribed my specialist to tell me I could never have children. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. Why would anyone do that to their child? Control. Maxwell's face hardened. William Pierce didn't want an heir threatening his empire. He wanted me focused solely on the business with no distractions like family. That's monstrous, Sarah whispered. There's more. Maxwell pointed to a specific document. The investigator found my original unaltered medical records. According to this, I didn't just have MS. I had a genetic kidney abnormality that went undiagnosed. The same condition that causes Alport syndrome. Sarah gasped. You mean I'm not just Emily's father? I gave her this condition. His voice cracked with emotion. But it also means I might be able to donate after all. Sarah's mind raced, connecting dots. The tissue compatibility issue might be related to specific antigen markers associated with the condition. I've already contacted Dr. Winters with this information. They're running new tests tomorrow. Sarah sank into a chair, overwhelmed by implications. You could be her donor. Maxwell nodded, his usual confidence replaced by vulnerable hope. It's why I never got sick despite working myself to exhaustion. My kidneys have a unique structure. Abnormal but functional. The doctor thinks I might be the perfect donor precisely because I carry the same genetic markers. The revelation hung between them, altering everything. Does Emily know? Sarah asked. Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. Sarah studied the man before her. So different from the arrogant CEO who dismissed her years ago. In his face, she saw fear, hope, and determination intermingled. Thank you, she said simply, for not giving up. Maxwell met her gaze. I've spent my life pursuing success, Sarah. I defined it as wealth, power, recognition. But I was wrong. He glanced toward Emily's room. She's my greatest achievement, and I had nothing to do with it. That's on you. You raised an extraordinary child while I was chasing meaningless goals. The sincerity in his voice touched something deep within Sarah, a place she'd guarded carefully against him. Before she could respond, Emily's nurse appeared. She's asking for both of you, the nurse said with a smile. Something about a Christmas list that needs serious discussion. They found Emily sitting up in bed, colored markers spread around her. She beamed at them. Perfect timing. I need help with my list for Santa. Maxwell and Sarah exchanged a look. One of shared purpose. Shared hope and perhaps something more. For the first time, they faced the future not as reluctant co-parents, but as allies in the most important battle of their lives. Snow fell silently outside the hospital window as Maxwell kept his solitary vigil. In the bed beside him, Emily slept fitfully, her small body dwarfed by machines monitoring her deteriorating condition. The Christmas holiday had come and gone, marked by forced cheer in the pediatric ward and presents opened from a hospital bed. The new tests had confirmed Maxwell's stunning compatibility as a donor, but Emily's health had taken a sudden downturn, delaying the transplant. Her kidney function had plummeted, requiring more aggressive dialysis while doctors worked to stabilize her condition. Maxwell checked his watch. 3:14 a.m. Sarah had finally succumbed to exhaustion around midnight, retreating to the cot in the corner after Maxwell promised to wake her if anything changed. He studied her sleeping form, marveling at her strength through this ordeal. These past 5 months had transformed him in ways his wealth never could. Board meetings and profit margins seemed trivial compared to the numbers that now consumed him. Emily's creatinine levels, blood pressure readings, medication dosages. His phone vibrated with a text from his COO. Board meeting in 4 hours. Presence required for merger vote. Maxwell typed a simple reply. Not coming. Handle it. Then he silenced the device and returned it to his pocket. The old Maxwell would never have delegated such a critical decision, but priorities had shifted seismically. Emily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Max, she whispered. He leaned closer. I'm here, monkey. Need anything? She considered this question with characteristic seriousness. Try. Maxwell smiled. Which one? Harry Potter? She shook her head. Tell me about when you were little. The request caught him off guard. He rarely spoke about his childhood. The cold mansion in Connecticut, the distant father, the mother who'd retreated into pills and alcohol. Well, he began hesitantly, when I was about your age, I built my first computer from parts one found at a junkyard. Emily's eyes widened. By yourself? All by myself? My father thought it was a waste of time. He wanted me to study finance, not technology. Was he mean? Emily asked with a child's directness. Maxwell considered how to answer. He wasn't mean exactly. He just didn't know how to love people properly. He thought success was more important than happiness. That's silly, Emily declared. Being happy is the most important thing. That's what Mom always says. Your mom is very wise. Maxwell glanced at Sarah's sleeping form. I wish I'd listened to her more when we first met. Did you love her? Emily's question was innocent but penetrating. Maxwell swallowed hard. I didn't know how to love anyone then, Emily. I was too busy trying to prove something to my father. Do you know how to love people now? The question pierced him deeply. I'm learning, he answered honestly. You're teaching me. Emily seemed satisfied with this response. She clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit, the one Maxwell had brought to the hospital months ago. When I get your kidney, will I be like you? She asked sleepily. How do you mean? Will I be good at math and computers? Maxwell smiled. You already are. But you're also kind and brave like your mother. That's much more important. Emily's eyelids grew heavy. Mom says the operation is tomorrow. If your numbers look good in the morning, Maxwell confirmed, trying to keep his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. The risks of the surgery had been explained in excruciating detail by the transplant team. Risks to both Emily and himself. Are you scared? Emily asked, reading his thoughts with uncanny perception. A little, he admitted. Me, too. She reached for his hand. But Mom says it's okay to be scared as long as you're brave anyway. Your mom is right about that, too. Emily drifted back to sleep, her small fingers intertwined with his. Maxwell continued his vigil, watching the snow fall and contemplating how a 6-year-old girl had accomplished what years of therapy had failed to achieve, breaking through the walls around his heart. Across the room, Sarah opened her eyes, having heard their exchange. Their gazes met in the dim light, a world of unspoken feelings passing between them. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for this moment they were united in love for the child who had brought them together in the most unexpected way. The morning of the transplant surgery dawned bright and cold, sunlight reflecting off fresh snow that blanketed the city. Maxwell stood at the window of Emily's hospital room, watching the world outside continue its normal rhythm, while his own universe had narrowed to this single day, this critical procedure. Behind him, a team of nurses prepared Emily for surgery, their movements efficient and gentle. Sarah sat beside their daughter, reading her favorite story one more time, a ritual they'd established before every procedure. Mr. Pierce, the transplant coordinator, appeared at his elbow. It's time for your pre-op. Maxwell nodded, turning back to the room. Emily looked impossibly small in the hospital bed. Her dark hair, his hair, fanned out on the pillow. For a moment, fear paralyzed him. What if something went wrong? What if, after finding her, he lost her? Emily's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. Don't forget our deal. He smiled, remembering their conversation from the night before. I won't forget. Disney World as soon as you're cleared to travel. And Mom comes too, Emily reminded him solemnly. Of course. Maxwell glanced at Sarah, who managed a tense smile. He approached the bed, heart hammering against his ribs. The business titan who negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, now found himself terrified of a medical procedure that thousands underwent successfully each year. I'll see you on the other side, monkey, he said, bending to kiss Emily's forehead. I'll have your kidney and you'll have my stuffed rabbit, she replied, handing him the well-loved toy. So, we both have something of each other's. Maxwell accepted the rabbit, throat tight with emotion. It's a fair trade. As the nurses prepared to wheel Emily to the operating room, Sarah rose to walk alongside the bed. Maxwell hung back, giving them space for their private goodbye. The relationship between mother and daughter, built on 6 years of shared struggles, joys, and unwavering love, was something he observed with equal parts admiration and envy. Sarah approached him after Emily had been taken down the hall. "Your turn," she said, her voice steadier than he expected. Maxwell nodded, clutching the stuffed rabbit. "Sarah, if something happens, don't." She cut him off firmly. "Nothing will happen. You're both coming back." Her certainty steadied him. "I've updated my will anyway. Everything goes to Emily with you as trustee until she's of age." Sarah's professional composure cracked slightly. "Maxwell. And there's a trust for her education, medical expenses, everything she could need. The paperwork is with my lawyer, Arthur Weinstein. I've left his contact information. Stop planning for your death and start focusing on your recovery." Sarah interrupted, her eyes flashing. "Emily needs you alive, not your money." The words struck him with unexpected force. Emily needed him. Not his wealth, not his influence, but him. The revelation still felt new after months of adjustment to fatherhood. Sarah's expression softened. She reached out hesitantly, then pulled him into an unexpected embrace. "Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder, "for giving her this chance." Maxwell held her briefly, inhaling the faint scent of her shampoo, the same one she'd used 7 years ago. "Thank you for raising her," he replied, "for being everything I couldn't be." They separated as the pre-op nurse approached. Maxwell handed the stuffed rabbit to Sarah. "Keep this safe until we're both back." "I will," she promised as they wheeled him toward the operating room. Maxwell closed his eyes, remembering the boardroom of Pierce Enterprises. 6 months ago, his thoughts would have been consumed with stock prices, acquisitions, and strategic planning. Now all that mattered was a small girl with his eyes and a spirit he could only hope to emulate. The anesthesia wore off gradually. Consciousness returning in hazy fragments, Maxwell became aware of a steady beeping, the antiseptic smell of the recovery room, and a dull ache in his abdomen. "He's waking up," a voice said nearby. Maxwell forced his heavy eyelids open. Dr. Winters stood beside his bed, checking monitors. "Emily," Maxwell croaked, his mouth desert dry. "She's doing well," the doctor assured him. "The kidney is functioning beautifully, perfect match, as we'd hoped." Relief flooded through him, more powerful than the pain medication coursing through his veins. "Where is she?" he managed. "Still in recovery. You'll be able to see her tomorrow once you're both stronger." Maxwell tried to sit up, wincing as pain lanced through his side. "Easy," Dr. Winters cautioned. "The laparoscopic procedure was successful, but you've still undergone major surgery. You need to rest. Sarah, with Emily, she's been going back and forth between both of you." Maxwell relaxed slightly, knowing his daughter wasn't alone. His daughter? The phrase still filled him with wonder. "How long was I out?" he asked. "About 6 hours. Everything went according to plan. 6 hours that had changed 3 lives forever." Maxwell closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had transpired. A part of him now lived within Emily, the most worthwhile contribution he'd ever made. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of vital sign checks, pain management, and brief lucid moments. Sarah appeared periodically, updating him on Emily's progress between her own catnaps in the waiting room. "She's asking for you," Sarah told him during one visit. "They say tomorrow you can be moved to her room if you're both stable." Maxwell nodded, too exhausted for words, but grateful beyond measure. The following afternoon, nurses carefully transferred Maxwell to a reclining chair beside Emily's bed in the pediatric ICU. The sight of his daughter, pale but alive, connected to monitors and 4 lines, brought tears to his eyes. "Hey, monkey," he said softly. Emily turned toward his voice, her face lighting up despite her obvious fatigue. "Max, you're okay." "I'm okay," he confirmed. "And you're okay, too?" "The doctors say my kidney likes its new home." "It does," she agreed seriously. The nurses say it's working super good. Sarah stood on the other side of Emily's bed, dark circles under her eyes, testifying to her sleepless vigil. Yet she was smiling. The first genuine smile Maxwell had seen from her in days. "We make a good team," Emily declared, looking between her parents, "all three of us." Maxwell met Sarah's gaze over their daughter's head. Something passed between them, an acknowledgement of the journey they'd taken, from strangers to antagonists to tentative allies, bound by the miracle lying between them. 6 weeks later, Maxwell stood in the doorway of his home office, watching Emily concentrate on the coding tutorial displayed on her tablet. After their release from the hospital, he'd converted the space into a comfortable recovery room where he could work while keeping Emily company during her convalescence. The transplant had been successful beyond all expectations. Emily's body had accepted the kidney with minimal complications, her strength returning more quickly than the doctors had predicted. Maxwell's own recovery had been slower, a fact that amused Emily to no end. "You're an old man," she teased whenever he winced while standing. "Respect your elders," he'd retort, secretly delighted by her increasing vitality. The sound of the front door opening announced Sarah's arrival. By mutual agreement, she'd moved into one of the penthouse's guest suites during their recovery period. An arrangement intended to be temporary, but which had gradually evolved into something less defined. "How are my favorite patients?" she called, appearing beside Maxwell in the doorway. "I finished the whole coding module," Emily announced proudly. "Max says I'm a natural." "She debugged a script faster than I could," Maxwell confirmed, his voice warm with pride. Sarah smiled. "Of course she did. She has your brain and my persistence. Poor world doesn't stand a chance." The casual acknowledgement of their shared traits in Emily no longer felt strange. Over the weeks of recovery, as they'd navigated medications, doctor's appointments, and Emily's boundless questions, Maxwell and Sarah had formed a partnership neither had anticipated. "The transplant team called," Sarah said, her tone shifting to businesslike efficiency. "They want to move Emily's next checkup to Thursday instead of Friday." "I'll reschedule the board meeting," Maxwell replied automatically. Sarah gave him a measured look. "You don't have to cancel every meeting for every appointment. I can take her sometimes." "I want to be there," he insisted. "Pierce Enterprises managed without me for 6 weeks. They can handle another afternoon." The company had indeed survived his absence during recovery, largely due to the systems Maxwell had reluctantly put in place under Sarah's practical insistence. He'd learned to delegate, to trust others, to recognize that control wasn't always necessary. Lessons that had changed his management style upon his return. "We should celebrate after the appointment," Emily suggested. "If my numbers are good, they will be," Sarah assured her. "But celebration sounds perfect. What did you have in mind?" Emily's eyes sparkled with mischief. "The three of us should go to dinner at that fancy restaurant Max is always talking about." Maxwell and Sarah exchanged glances. They had carefully maintained separate spheres despite living under the same roof, co-parents rather than a couple. "That sounds nice," Sarah said carefully. "If Max isn't too busy." "Never too busy," Maxwell replied. The words coming easily now. 6 months ago, such a statement would have been unthinkable, his calendar meticulously scheduled in 15-minute increments, personal time a foreign concept. Emily beamed, "Perfect. I'll wear my new dress." Later that evening, after Emily had gone to bed, Maxwell found Sarah on the penthouse terrace, gazing out at the city lights. He poured her a glass of wine and joined her at the railing. "She's getting stronger every day," Sarah observed, accepting the glass. "She's remarkable," Maxwell agreed. Like her mother, Sarah smiled faintly. "Flattery, Mr. Pierce." "Observation, Ms. Mitchell." They stood in companionable silence, the frigid winter air softened by heat lamps placed strategically around the terrace. "The lease on the apartment near the hospital expires next month," Sarah said finally. Maxwell tensed slightly. "I know. I've been looking at places closer to Emily's school." "You could stay here," he suggested, trying to keep his tone casual. "The arrangement has worked well for Emily's recovery." Sarah turned to face him directly. And when her recovery is complete, what then, Maxwell? The question hung between them, weighted with possibilities. I'd like you both to stay, he said simply. I've never had a home before, Sarah. Not really. This was just a place I slept between meetings. Now it's different. Because of Emily, she clarified. Because of both of you, Maxwell set his wine glass down, gathering courage for words he'd never spoken. I'm not the man you met 7 years ago. I'm not even the man who called you 6 months ago, ready to berate you for missing an interview. No, Sarah agreed softly. You're not. When I thought I might lose Emily during the surgery, I realized something. It wasn't just fear of losing my daughter. It was fear of losing what we've built. This family, however unconventional. Sarah's expression remained guarded. Co-parenting doesn't require living together, Maxwell. This isn't about convenience, he insisted. It's about what I want, what I hope you might want too. And what's that? A chance. Maxwell took a careful step closer to see if there's something between us worth exploring. Not for Emily's sake, but for our own. Sarah studied him, her expression unreadable. You broke my heart once before. I know. I was a fool. You were? She agreed, but a smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. A brilliant, ambitious, utterly clueless fool. I've improved on the clueless part, Maxwell offered. The rest is still a work in progress. Sarah laughed softly, the sound warming him more effectively than the terrace heaters. Haven't we all? She sipped her wine thoughtfully. One condition. Name it. We take it slow for all our sakes. Emily's been through enough change, agreed. Maxwell felt hope expanding in his chest. Dinner this Thursday after Emily's appointment. Just the three of us. Just the three of us, Sarah confirmed. Higher, Daddy. Push me higher. Maxwell obliged, giving the swing another gentle push as Emily soared toward the clear summer sky. The park bustled with weekend activity. Families enjoying the perfect June weather. 1 year had passed since that fateful phone call. A year of hospital visits, recovery milestones, and gradual healing, both physical and emotional. Emily's new kidney functioned perfectly, her energy restored to full 6-year-old, now 7-year-old, capacity. Sarah approached, carrying an ice cream cone in each hand. One chocolate for the monkey, she announced, handing it to Emily as the swing slowed. And one vanilla for the old man. Maxwell accepted the cone with mock indignation. 46 is hardly ancient. Ancient enough to complain about your back after 15 minutes of swinging, Sarah teased, settling beside him on the park bench. Emily skipped ahead to the jungle gym, her ice cream clutched carefully in one hand. Maxwell and Sarah watched her climb with the easy confidence of a healthy child, a sight they never took for granted. The school called today, Sarah mentioned. They want to move Emily into the advanced math program. Not surprising, Maxwell replied proudly. Did I tell you she reprogrammed my smart home system yesterday? Rewrote the entire interface to include her favorite music in every room. Sarah laughed. Your programming genes with my stubbornness is a dangerous combination. I wouldn't have it any other way. Maxwell took her hand, the gesture now familiar and comfortable. The past year had transformed all three of them. Sarah had accepted a full-time position with Pierce Enterprises, heading a new division focused on educational technology. Maxwell had restructured the company's leadership, delegating day-to-day operations to focus on strategic direction and, more importantly, to be home for dinner most nights. Their relationship had evolved slowly, carefully. Movie nights with Emily becoming family traditions, professional respect developing into deeper understanding, separate bedrooms gradually becoming a formality rather than a necessity. I've been thinking, Maxwell said, watching Emily demonstrate her climbing skills to another child. Remember that coding boot camp you wanted to attend? The one you put on hold when Emily got sick? Sarah nodded. What about it? You should do it if you still want to. She turned to him, surprised. That was just a stepping stone. I don't need it now. Not for your career, he agreed. But you were excited about it, passionate. I don't want you to give up dreams because of circumstances. Sarah studied him thoughtfully. When did you become so insightful? I had good teachers. Maxwell squeezed her hand. You and Emily showed me what actually matters. She leaned against his shoulder, a gesture of affection that still thrilled him. I might look into it. There's a weekend program that could work with my schedule. Whatever you need to make it happen. Maxwell hesitated, then added, actually, I've been thinking about scaling back myself. You, the ultimate workaholic, former workaholic, he corrected. I'm considering stepping down as CEO, remaining as chairman, but bringing in new leadership. Sarah straightened, turning to face him fully. Are you serious? Pierce Enterprises is your life's work. It was, Maxwell acknowledged. Now it's just work. Important work, but not what defines me anymore. He nodded toward Emily, now organizing the other children into some complex game of her own invention. She's what matters. You're what matters. Sarah's eyes softened. Maxwell Pierce voluntarily relinquishing control. I never thought I'd see the day. Neither did I, he admitted, but nearly losing Emily. It changed my perspective permanently. I don't want to miss anything else. They watched their daughter in comfortable silence, the summer sun warming their shoulders. After a moment, Maxwell reached into his pocket. I have something for you, he said, suddenly nervous. No pressure, no expectations, just a question. Sarah's eyes widened as he withdrew a small velvet box. Maxwell, I'm not rushing, he assured her quickly. It doesn't have to be soon. It doesn't even have to be yes, but I wanted you to know where I stand, what I hope for. He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. I love you, Sarah. I think I've loved you since that weekend in San Diego, but I was too blinded by ambition to recognize it. I want to build a life with you and Emily, a real family. Sarah stared at the ring, then at Maxwell, tears gathering in her eyes. You rehearsed this, didn't you? He smiled sheepishly. For weeks, Emily helped. She knows. She suggested the park. Said it was more romantic than a fancy restaurant. Sarah laughed through her tears. She's right. She took a deep breath. Ask me properly. Maxwell slid from the bench onto one knee, unconcerned about his expensive suit on the park ground. Sarah Mitchell, will you marry me? From the jungle gym, Emily's voice rang out. Say yes, Mom. Sarah and Maxwell both turned to see their daughter watching intently, surrounded by curious children and smiling parents. We have an audience, Sarah murmured, blushing. I'm waiting for an answer, Maxwell reminded her, still kneeling. Sarah's smile bloomed fully as she nodded. Yes, I'll marry you. A cheer erupted from the jungle gym as Maxwell slipped the ring onto Sarah's finger and pulled her into an embrace. Emily abandoned her game and raced toward them, launching herself into their arms with characteristic enthusiasm. We're going to be a real family now, she exclaimed. Maxwell held his daughter and his fiancée close, marveling at the journey that had brought them here. From a mistaken medical diagnosis to a missed job interview to a life-saving transplant, the path had been neither straight nor easy, but it had led exactly where he needed to be. We already are a family, he said softly. Now we're just making it official. Emily looked up at him with his own eyes bright with happiness. I told you calling me that day was the best thing ever. Maxwell couldn't help but agree. That single phone call made in anger, answered in innocence, had changed everything. The ruthless CEO who believed himself incapable of fatherhood had found his greatest purpose in the little girl who called him daddy and the woman who had given him a second chance. As the summer sun warmed the three of them, Maxwell Pierce, once defined by his wealth and power, finally understood the true meaning of being rich, the love of family, the gift of second chances, and the miracle of a child's voice on the phone saying those 6 life-changing words, "Mommy says you're my daddy." Real Stories Diary.